by the sea, by the beautiful sea, you and I.
150 years ago, when our yacht club was started, sailing was a very limited sport. There were 35 yacht clubs with a fleet of some 500 listed yachts, owned by wealthy gentlemen and sailed or raced by professional crews. The main water sports at that time were rowing and canoeing, but sailing in small boats was just beginning. A group of prominent New York journalists, led by William L. Alden from the New York Times, decided to form a club to support the new sport of cruising in sailing canoes. They organized the New York Canoe Club in 1871 at Hickman's Restaurant in Lower Manhattan.
My mom's family came to the United States and to New York after the potato famine in Ireland. And my dad's family dated back way before 150 years. And he's a Van Brunt, so he's Dutch with Canadian Indian blood in him. And that's where I came from.
Well, going back 150 years ago, my mother's side of the family lived in a small hamlet along the Rio Grande River, established by the Spaniards when they moved out to the American Southwest. They were basically farmers, and that's what they were doing at that point in history. My dad's side actually came to Mexico from Germany and France, and they settled in Mexico until the revolutions got so bad they moved to the USA for fear of their lives.
In December of 1869, my great-grandfather landed in New York from North Rhine-Westphalia. I think he was a blacksmith, but he ended up with a horse and wagon delivery business that became trucking eventually. Along comes me, and I have a PhD in engineering, so figure that out. That's America.
The poor side of my family was in Odessa, Russia, and the wealthy part of my family was on my father's side, was in Austria-Hungary. My family had to leave Russia because they burned down their village. So just like the story Fiddler on the Roof, he had a brother here in the country, so he came to live in Brownsville with his brother. And on the other side of family, they were very wealthy. His name was Spiro. He came over here on his own, first class, and he started a business that was, at that time, as big as Macy's. It was Macy's competitor. So he sold the whole building except for the shoe department, which he kept, and lived off that, and he sold the rest. If things were different, I'd be richer than Macy's right now.
And you'd have a bigger boat.
I'd have a bigger boat.
My father, he grew up in Russia and he was a young man, probably 15, 16, during World War I. So he lived in Russia during the Russian Revolution. He had an affluent family, and when the Russian Revolution got started, his father was executed by the Bolsheviks in front of the family. My father and his two sisters and a mother survived, and in 1923 were able to immigrate to the United States. And then he built up a nice business and did well. And that's the success story of people coming from other parts of the world. That's what makes the United States such a great country for all of us.
Great.
Yeah!
Right.
Yeah.
My mother's family's from upstate New York. Came over originally from Germany. My father's family's from the Austria-Hungarian border. And they came over in the 1920s to escape persecution of the Jews.
I know exactly where my family was one of my members in 1871. My great-grandfather was Alexander Graham Bell, and he came over from Scotland. He was a teacher of the deaf, besides being a tinkerer. And he came over to teach at the Boston School for the Deaf. And in June of 1871, and in 1876, he got the patent for the first telephone. In 1877, They created the Bell Telephone Company.
My father's family was actually here 150 years ago, actually 200 years ago. They came here at the turn of the century, the 1800s, and they moved west. They're Scotch-Irish, and they moved west when they came here, and I actually have some Indian in me. They mated with the Cherokee. I'm also Italian, so my mother's side, they weren't here 150 years. During World War II, my father, who was from Oklahoma, because his side of the family was out west, and they lived in Oklahoma, and he was attending a USO dance, and my mother met him in the city. And she was kind of taken by, the faraway west, and a man who came from a ranch, which really wasn't a ranch, but what did she know? And they met and got married, and the rest is history.
The first sailing canoes, the Rob Roy, were brought over from England, and models were built in the U.S. as well. Various models of sailing canoes developed over the years. In the early ones, the canoeist was seated on the floor of the canoe, steering by a foot yoke. A later development was the decked sailing canoe, which became very popular. However, by the end of the first 50 years of the New York Canoe Club, most of the members moved on to various classes of small sailing craft and decked yachts.
I grew up by the water, which explains why I love North Shore Yacht Club. I lived 2 houses from a lake. We would ice skate, swim. During the summer, we would water ski and sail. And so I was very fortunate.
I got involved in North Shore Yacht Club because I met Mary Lou. And believe it or not, we met at church. I convinced her to get in my canoe with me, and we've been together ever since.
I got to sailing because of a friend of mine, and he had a snipe. We went sailing, and we had a great time, but we had a bit of a mishap. It was very windy, and the mast snapped.
I bought a book, had an invitation to sailing.
Yeah.
Then I found someone stupid enough to rent me a boat.
But we all learned the things we enjoy today by going to camp.
That's a nice striped bass.
Look at that. Holy cow.
Gary's is the only boat most of the time that's sailing all winter long.
For 20 years.
My father's father joined Knickerbocker Yacht Club, and he had a powerboat. And this is pre-war. And he kept increasing the size of his powerboat. My father grew up on the powerboat, and then the war happened, and they couldn't get gas for the powerboats. So he sold the powerboat, and he got a sailboat, and he fell in love with sailing, and it became a family thing. The family sailed, and they sailed throughout the war, and they took a lot of other people sailing. 11 years ago, I moved out to Port Washington and bought this Capri 22, which is called Windy, which is the same name as my ensign had been, and had a baby and joined the yacht club. And so I'm the first baby, the first returning child. I'm not really a baby returning, but a first returning child to North Shore Yacht Club.
When there was a polio epidemic here in New York, and my uncle and his wife were both school teachers, and they ran a camp in the Pocono Mountains. Our whole family went up to visit them one weekend and got quarantined there. So I learned to sail on a boat called a snipe. Didn't like much of it at all.
I'm the sailor in the family.
And on our way up to Nova Scotia in the summer, she said to me, "Oh, by the way, you have to learn how to sail." And I said, "This is not right. I'm not going to make you learn how to play stickball."
But he did. He learned to sail and surpassed his teacher. So I was sailing snipes and prams from the age of 12 on. So when we were married, he came up and he learned to sail a pram. He already knew how to sail a snipe. And we've been sailing ever since.
I was in the Boy Scouts at age 11 and spent many, many years with the Scouts. When I was 14, one of the Scout leaders decided to start a Sea Scout ship, which is for Explorer Scouts. It was a unique area from 14 on, and I was part of that. And actually learned how to sail from that experience when I was 14.
I used to teach, and one day I picked up a book that a student had left behind on his desk, and it was a book on sailing. And so I took it home and I read it that evening, and I was fascinated by the fact that wind could not only push a boat, but pull a boat. I didn't know that, you know?
Amazing grace.
Victor Ostling had passed away, and his estate wanted to own the building, and they offered it to us at a very, very nice price. And people didn't want to do it. And we lost a bunch of membership at that point. They walked out, and it was a lot of controversy. But we recovered from that and went on, and we were quite successful, and we still continue to be quite successful. I always liked the idea of actually the members were so intimately involved in the club because they spent 8 hours in physical labor working on the club.
Marshall Strauss used to make homemade soup. Dr. Borden would play the piano while we ate lunch. And there were all sorts of projects going on, and all the equipment was there, and all the people were in teams, and they were working at scraping or painting or whatever the projects were.
I think we can survive another 50 years and more. I think we'll have to adjust to the times, just like, I will hear old stories about racing starts where you have 40 or 50 boats on the starting line, where today you have 5 or 6. And we have to adapt. And for example, we've adapted in a small way with our junior sailing program and the boat share program.
I like it a lot because when we go sailing, I get to go far in the ocean.
Well, I just want to make sure that they're always having fun, because if they're not having fun, they're not going to be able to find the beauty in sailing. I found the beauty in sailing from having fun every day. There was never a dull day.
It's really good. It was so fun. We jumped in the water and learned all the names of the sailboats, and we played a game, and we made anemometers.
We're going on a trip in our favorite sailing ship in a Pico.
So I think for me personally, I didn't know how to sail before joining the club and the boat share program, and it was all about having access to a boat that is shared amongst everyone. Everyone kind of communally works on the boat together, and ultimately we learn how to sail it together and how to take care of it together.
North Shore Yacht Club members are a happy group of sailors, sharing their love of sailing and playing on the water.
Most of the members want one thing: they want to enjoy their sailboat. And when you look out on the bay and you see a boat there, you say, oh, I want to be out there. I want to be in a boat. I want to be sailing. I want to be heeled over.
We've got great friends there. Some of them are no longer alive, but I'll remember them forever.
It's a sailing club more than a yacht club, and we're sailors.
Because we're a smaller club, because we all have this common love of sailing, we really only have that one powerboat. Because we put on our own entertainment, we don't have a staff, I think that people feel deeper for the club. They really feel it's their family, it's their friends. They love being together. They love talking about sailing.
It's survived 150 years because of the people in it.
It was great. My first date was, we took the boat out at Columbia 22, and we went to Capri Cove for our first date together.
Found it always to be a very friendly club, a lot of camaraderie among the members.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so...
Welcome, everyone. I am honored and delighted as Commodore to welcome you all on this beautiful spring, hot, sunny day to the 150th commissioning of the North Shore Yacht Club. We are one of the 2 oldest yacht clubs on Long Island, the other being Sewanaka Corinthian Yacht Club. It is certainly a unique and unusual experience to be celebrating such an accomplishment of 150 years on a Zoom call. while we are in a lockdown situation. But as usual, we will make the best of it. We are a strong and resilient group of sailors that will continue to keep our club going for another 150 years.
Commodore, bridge members, board, and fellow sailors. Sailing is a sport of prediction, courage, and meticulous preparation. But any one of us who ventured offshore can attest to the insignificance of our best efforts. One small sneeze of Mother Nature, and we need divine intervention to return home safely. This divine intervention can come in many forms, from above, from within, from a fellow sailor, or from a ship passing in the night. This year, we are confronted with the ugly face of a horrible pandemic that affects every facet of our lives. We are sailors, used to perils, isolation, and rigor, so we will fight through this calamity as well. Therefore, let us give thanks to having selected such a challenging sport, for braving the element, for fierce racing competition, and for a romantic moonlight sail. May we always have wind in our sails, enough water under our keels, and the wonderful camaraderie of this club. Please bow your head and join me in a moment of reflection as we give thanks according to our own personal persuasion for our lives, for the fellowship that feeds our souls, and for all things good and beautiful with which our lives are filled. Thank you and amen.
Fleet Captain, is the North Shore Yacht Club ready for commissioning?
Yes, Commodore Kula, the North Shore Yacht Club is ready for commissioning.
By the authority given to me by the membership, I now declare the North Shore Yacht Club in commission for its 150th season. Cheers. Cheers to everybody. Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers, everybody.
By the sea, by the sea, by the beautiful sea, you and I, oh how happy we'll be.